Derek Sloan has really been a trooper through all of this. More recently, he's been taking a lot of flack from his criticism over the World Health Organization's links with the Chinese Communist Party. And for the record, the World Health Organization, along with the many UN entities and agencies, they are some of the most pro-abortion organizations in the world. And now we're going to move on to our final interview that Jack Fonseca conducted with another CPC leadership candidate, except this one was disqualified. And so please tune in to this interview with Jim Karahalios to listen in to what he has to say about what happened.
Introduce you to Mr. Jim Karahalios. Jim, I'll jump right into it because we don't have a lot of time. CLC has known you for many years as a pro-lifer who's involved in conservative politics. We also endorsed your wife, Belinda Karahalios, as a pro-life provincial MPP candidate in Cambridge, where I can happily say she won the election and now faithfully serves her constituents as an MP at Queen's Park. Very briefly, in the interest of time, can you explain why you were disqualified illegally and unethically, in my view?
We were removed from the ballot 6 days before the race was paused because Aaron O'Toole, his campaign, put forward a complaint calling for my disqualification to a small committee supposedly running this election, where he claimed I made Islamophobic comments for an email where I criticized his campaign chair for advocating for Sharia banking in the Globe and Mail. And in my shock, the committee agreed with Mr. O'Toole and removed me from the ballot. They couldn't even identify a rule that I broke. They just said it was Islamophobic.
Jim, let me jump in. Is there any policy in the Conservative Party policy declaration? I know the answer to this because I've read it cover to cover many times. Is there any policy that says that conservatives shall not be permitted to criticize Sharia law or Sharia financing?
So there's nothing that talks about Sharia banking for or against, but there is a policy that says we are not for cultural or religious courts or tribunals. We're for one law for all. So actually, there's a policy that supports my communication.
The long and the short of it is there is a possibility that the judge will rule that you should be reinstated. Is that correct?
We've worked really hard for a month or over a month getting together all the good legal arguments and evidence. So there is a chance, Jack, that we'll get back on the ballot.
So Jim, you became famous for your a couple of your campaigns, one being the Take Back Our PC Party campaign, which challenged corruption under Ontario PC leader Patrick Brown. During the Brown regime, nomination elections were being rigged many times, and perhaps even most of the time, to block socially conservative pro-life candidates. If you win the race, can we expect to see a similar cleanup of the Conservative Party under your leadership?
Well, definitely, Jack, you've known me because I've always advocated and tried to stop voter fraud within the Ontario PC Party, but even federally, I've always fought really hard in the policy process and the constitutional process to ensure that the rules are followed and we have a grassroots process. If they can remove me in the middle of a leadership race when I'm in third place, what's the hope for any blue conservative or pro-life conservative to run in a nomination in the future again? They will just deny anyone who has the courage to speak up.
Can you please share with us the pro-life policies that you've announced thus far during the leadership race as part of your election platform?
Our Conservative Party is not going to be funding abortions overseas. Secondly, I've also announced that I'm going to fight for caucus to have the freedom to bring forward and vote in line with their conscience. We're going to have to put forward legislation that protects healthcare workers and other professionals based on their conscience and not being forced to do things that are outside of their religious beliefs. And then the next conservative government we have has to make a concerted effort to put judges on the Supreme Court that are strict interpretationalists. And so that's my platform on the social issues. I think it's the strongest that's been presented from the leadership candidates, and the one that's realistic, given the constraints that we have with the democratic system and the current judiciary for the long-term vision of a conservative movement.
Now, before we close, would you care to say a word of encouragement to the tens of thousands of pro-life Canadians participating in this year's National March for Life, Jim?
Well, I want to say thank you to pro-life conservatives and conservatives at large who supported our campaign, and it really shows the power of the conservative movement and the pro-life voice when three individuals endorsed by Campaign Life Coalition were able to raise a combined $900,000 to meet the ballot requirements, which were historic requirements. So I just want to say to conservatives and pro-life individuals, don't give up hope. Fight for a better future. Fight for the future, and we can't give up hope. And even when times seem rough, you know, this is my second court case in 4 years with political parties to fight for democracy. The best is yet to come.